Hello and welcome. And today we have a very, very special guest. And if you are an active participant on any social media platform, you might be surprised at the number of folks that look forward each and every day. I look forward to it each and every morning to what we now affectionately refer to as Hurdleisms. We are joined and honored to have join us today former big league player, Royals, Mets, former big league manager, Rockies, Pirates, now back in the dugout as the bench coach for the Colorado Rockies, Mr. Clint Hurdle. Coach, thank you so much for taking the time to join me today. I'm really excited to chat with you.
Coach, I'm glad that we got together. We met a little over a year ago, and we've a couple of years ago, and we've kind of stayed in touch. But I think this is the best opportunity we're going to have actually have some FaceTime with each other here.
Yeah, exactly correct. We usually kind of pass each other in the ABCA, highlight room or the equipment room or anything like that. But I really want to start with, before we go down the rabbit hole with the book, I don't know if people recognize how many people really take your words of wisdom every morning, that sense of positivity to start their day. When did that begin for you? Like, when did you start to say, hey, I'm going to start posting on X or Instagram and start sharing some of these nuggets?
Well, I just started posting probably a little over 2 years ago. My son Christian was getting ready to leave for college, and he and I were discussing a lot of the opportunities that were going to be in front of him. Get out of your comfort zone. Use your eyes and ears. Asking for help is a superpower. All the lessons that I had learned along the way that I maybe didn't learn as quickly as I could have or maybe should have. And he goes, Dad, well, I got something for you before I go. He said, I would really like to see you engage more on social media or at all on social media. And I had all these reasons for Christian why I didn't want to. It's messy, it's combative, it gets too political. He goes, yes, yes, yes. He goes, but that's not why you should use it. He goes, I've listened to your messaging for 12 years. You have an email chain that you send out 6,000 you know emails of encouragement or a devotional. He goes, you've been doing that for years. He said, but you could reach so many more people with smaller doses of positivity or life lessons learned, experiences shared, failure. He goes, I just would encourage you to do it because it needs to be done, Dad. There is a bunch of junk out there and it can be messy out there. He said, my encouragement to you is do it, number one, and then don't get involved in the haters because there's going to be haters. He, he actually said, be light, bright, and polite. And we didn't
Oh,
know it at the time, but we had actually used a phrase that an author, Josh Oakes, had wrote about in a book called Light, Bright, and Polite about social media. He said, get in, share your message, thank people, and then get out. When people respond negatively, he said, just say thanks, have a good day, or don't respond at all. He goes, this is going to be the hardest part for you, Dad, is to not fire back, to not try and rebuke, or to not try and fix. He said, you're not there to fix anybody, you're there to share. So that was the encouragement I received from my son. I started out, and it's kind of funny because I can remember the first time we were attempting to write a book before I wrote this book. As we were talking to publishers, a young publisher asked me, how many followers do you have? And I looked around behind me. I go, well, none. I don't have anybody behind me right now. He goes, well, I heard you have an email that reaches 6,000 people. I go, I do. He goes, well, we really don't even entertain going in an agreement with anybody that's written a book unless they have over 30,000 followers. That was my first walk in the door about followership. And to this day, Coach, I'm not in it for followership. I'm not in it for monetization. I keep getting people reaching out to me to put commercials on my posts, and this isn't to rebuke the people that do. For me, this is strictly of service. My emails are free. What I post online is free. It's just sharing lessons learned more often than not the hard way, and try and bring some hope or some peace to people that may be in hard spots because I've been that person.
I mean, you've lived it at the highest level as far as from a visibility, perspective, an athletic perspective. When we start talking about hurdleisms, where did that term hurdleisms, where did that come from?
That term, the first time I heard it, I was a little taken back because the only isms I'd ever heard of were Stingleisms and Yogiisms, and I didn't feel like I belonged in that group, that elite company. John Gordon, who's a very good friend of mine, John Gordon is one of the most knowledgeable, positive leadership influences out there. Written 17, maybe 18 now, number one selling books. We've known each other for almost 15 years. And when my friend Dave Burchett and I tried to write a book, started about 4 years ago, we spent 2 years on a book, put it together, then we went to try and get a publisher, and we continually were told no. As I mentioned, I think over 20 no's we got. Different groups said no. Small demographic, two old white guys telling stories. Nobody's going to buy it. Actually, one guy called us male, pale, and stale. So I went from being sad, my feelings were hurt, to mad, but I just didn't want to reach out for help. And not because I didn't feel that I didn't want to bother my friends that had written books. I wanted for Dave and I to pull this off. But Dave said, please talk to John. See what John thinks. John read the book in a couple of days, got right back to me. He goes, guys, I'm sorry, but this demographic it's not going to go. But he said, Clint, I need to have a sidebar with you tomorrow. Can you call me at such and such a time? I did. And he shared with me that the content was good. If I would take a step of faith and get outside my comfort zone and write my own book, he said that might put you in a position where your and Dave's book could come up next. Or down the line, he goes, Clint, your stuff in there is so good. He goes, I've spent 15 years with you watching you coach, manage, teach, life, family, father, kids, friends. I've kept a folder of things you've said, and he called them hurdleisms. And that's when I was taken aback. I was like, John, we can't use that term. Stingle, yogi. He goes, no, Clint, this is the term that people could identify with, especially anybody that's known you, because they've heard you say something that stuck with them. So John coached me up, challenged me, and then at the end of the day, he pretty much just double dog dared me to do it. He said, you need to do this. You need to do it because it will be as therapeutic for you as it could turn out to be for anybody else who reads it. And he was spot on. So John Gordon was the man who coined the phrase, first time I heard, hurdleisms.
Hurdleisms to me is the epitome of the blending of your knowledge as well as your ability to instruct. So for coaches, especially young coaches, we find ourselves in a very, very competitive youth sports, I guess we're going to call it industry. It's not like when I was a kid and you picked up, went to the ballpark and just played sandlot ball. How can hurdleisms kind of help not only coaches, but younger athletes that find themselves in a very competitive environment at such young ages? How can this help them develop that love and that passion for the sport of baseball?
It's a wonderful question, and it's well thought up, Walt. Number one is I worked through this book, and it's a comfortable read. It's not a manifesto. I'm not preaching and telling people what to do. I'm sharing experience, strength, and hope. And like I said before, mostly in situations either I didn't handle well, or I learned how to handle better, or great advice I got from other people that I put into play and had success with. For the coaches, I think I share what my warts were. I share what I learned from being coached as a phenom and then coached as an extra man by some Hall of Fame managers. I share other coaches that helped me along the way, and the things that, you either take something from a coach or you walk away and say, I know I'll never do that. I'm sure you've met some people in your life that have coached you up and man, I would never do that to the players I have. But you learn on both sides of the coin. And I learned a lot on both sides of the coin. And then I also share coaching techniques that have worked for me and my staffs with some of the younger players, some of the best players in the game. When I was in Texas, when I was in Colorado, when I was in Pittsburgh, but also the things that helped me as a young minor leaguer who was a number one pick and high expectations. Who stayed around, who was really with me, who was there in my corner, and who was more or less maybe just using me to get their own credit. if I had success. So it shares what became important to me as a coach over time. And that's the fact that I needed to be there for the person first. Why did I coach? There's still a lot of coaches out there that don't know why they coached. I believe they think it's a good idea. They want to be involved. They think they have knowledge to share. But the real why, are you there for all the travel, the trips, the games, the competition that you no longer get that adrenaline surge by playing? Are you getting it through coaching? But at the heart of the moment, in the heat of the moment, for me, it's been about helping a player become better. And that's what I lose sight of from time to time. So one of the hurdleisms I use in the book is multitasking makes me multi-mediocre. Early on in my coaching career, I was trying to do 8 things at a time. And it was actually a thing at a time where people would, there was a few podcasts I listened to, a few books I read on how you can become great at multitasking. Well, I never became great at multitasking. That's where I came up with the term multitasking makes me multi-mediocre. I'm best served, and the people I'm working with are best served when I focus on one thing at a time. And I think players are best served when you can meet them where they're at, right where they're at, not where you want them to be, and focus on doing one thing better, not 3 things, not in succession, not giving them an outline. Let's work on this today, and once we get this in a good spot, then we'll add something to it. I think that's one of the reasons. I think coaching is also hard, and the one part that I'll tip my hat to anybody that commits the time. Coaches get a lot of grief sometimes. They're not this and they're not that. Well, you know what they are? They're available and they're showing up. Now, maybe they've got their own set of things to work on, and maybe a toolbox needs to be sharpened up from time to time. But if you're there for the right reason, I tip my hat to you, because it's not easy. There's a lot of people that just show up on game day with a lot of advice for you. And you've been there on Monday through Friday with these kids, and Sammy probably better than the mom and dad know Sammy and what his skill set is, and this is why he's playing where he's playing, and this is why he's playing this much. But they don't want to hear it. So I have empathy for them. I do believe there's a lot of different hurdleisms in this book that can help young coaches and even older coaches, because I'm still learning at 67.
Well, one of the things I really, in today's world, and I'm sure you're very aware, the high school athletes with all of the transfer portal and all of the frustration that parents and families are going through with regard to recruiting and trying to be, recruited with regard to or scouted with regard to MLB. Can you talk a little bit about maybe some of the lesser known hurdleisms that may be applicable that can help that high school athlete or that high school family kind of continue to push forward in these challenging times?
Yeah, I am still trying to learn about the portal, and of course, obviously, I've got a bunch of good friends that are coaches in college, and it's driving them crazy in certain ways and at times. For me, one of the things I still share, and I shared it just yesterday with a young family. Kid was drafted, played pro ball, he's got a good opportunity at a college. You need to ask yourself real questions. Why does pro ball is entertaining to you? Is it just the money? Is the money necessary? Some families, the money can help change a life for a family. But it's also the kid's dream still. And you've been a part of that dream. I do think sometimes parents consider themselves general managers as the kid continues to grow. They've
Right.
invested time, they've invested resources, they need to make all the decisions. Well, the biggest decision should be, for me, when a kid's going to go anywhere else, is he going to play? A lot of times I've run into a lot of parents in the last few years. They're caught up on the name of the school the kid's going to go to or the name of the school the kid's recruiting. Nowadays, what you're told your freshman year could change completely by your sophomore year, which could change again by your junior year.
Right. Right.
And I know of kids that made commitments to places, and by the time they got there, that guy was let gone, and they were let go, and they never even got an interview with the coach they had signed up to go see. So a lot of it's out of your control. However, go where you feel you've done the best research. And maybe the coach has a history of staying in one place for at least 5 or 6 years. It's not a coach that continues to move, at least, has a trail. In pro ball, money can be life changing. I just heard of a kid yesterday that, he was drafted down and slopped. He got offered $1.1 million, and he's wrestling with going because he wants to go somewhere else. He wants to go back to school. The Pirates just lost their second round draft choice. They were going to offer a bunch of money, almost $2 million to him, and he chose UCLA. I don't even know the situation, but I do believe people have done their research and what's best for the kid at the end of the day, because some kids aren't meant to play pro ball out of high school. Some kids actually should probably go to a 2-year school and then maybe a 4-year school. Some kids that high school, the option out of high school is good. And a couple of them, a few of them. I've met them through the perfect game situation. I mean, my gosh, Connor Griffin out of high school.
Yeah.
Kid was built for it.
Right. He was built for it. He is built for
it. Jackson Holliday's built for it. We just signed Ethan 2 days ago. He's built for it. And I know the Willits kid from Perfect, he's built for it, but not every kid's built for it. You need to go where you're going to be challenged, number one, but also comfortable in your own skin, because some kids, they don't need to go to that biggest school. They need to go to a smaller school where they're comfortable. It all comes down, for me, is not everything in life and sport needs to be leveraged. If a kid can play, he got drafted out of high school. If he goes to college, he's going to hopefully walk away with a college degree at the end of that, because it's a very small percentage of kids that go into pro ball and actually make it to the big leagues.
That's so true. And one of the questions I have been really, before the book and now after the book, having read the book, I feel like you have the ability through the Hurdleisms, through your power of social media. How can you help parents begin to understand that they are a support mechanism? They are not a coach. They are not an instructor. They are not an umpire. They're really there to support their student athlete. Can you talk a little bit about that through, the book? I've read several passages in the book, maybe a few lesser known Hurdleisms that can help parents be more supportive and less competitive.
Well, yes. There's two kinds of people in this world, those that are humble and those that are about to be. I can remember having a heart-to-heart talk with my dad my senior year in high school. I just played a doubleheader. It was one of the worst doubleheaders I had. And then we get in the car to go home, and he's replaying the whole game. And it's going to be an hour and 15-minute drive, so this is going to go on for a while. My dad wasn't this kind of dad, but today he was. And I finally asked him to pull over. I said, I got to go to the bathroom, pull over, gas station or something. He pulls over, and he goes, are you going to go to the gas station? I go, no, I'm not. We need to chat. I finally found enough courage in myself that just said, Dad, I played. I made 3 errors. I struck out twice. I didn't cover this. Dad, I know what happened. I was there. I don't need to hear it from you in the ride home. What I need is for you to be my dad, not my coach.
So true.
And he looked at me, and I didn't know which way it was going to go. And he goes, okay. He goes, thank you for sharing that. He goes, how about we drive up to Dairy Queen and get some ice cream? I go, Dad, that would be awesome. Ice cream. I've never seen a sad person eating ice cream. But I would encourage parents to be parents. I've had to do it with my son. One of the best stories I tell in here, I believe, I'm biased, but my son, Christian, who is now 20 years old, he absolutely neutered me as a father, a parent, when it came to sports. He retired from baseball at the age of 4 while I was the manager of the Rockies. Retired from baseball. Never came back after his T-ball season, where basically you herd cats at the age of 4. The team concept and actually trying to play a game, it's pretty chaotic. But at the age of 4, at the end of the season, I asked him, how'd you like it? He goes, Dad, way too intense. I'm out. And I go, what does this mean? He goes, I don't know, but they do it to you when you make a pitching change, going back to the dugout. So from that point on, Walt, he became, he engaged in tennis, and then karate, and then crew. He fell in love with crew, rowing a boat. But my son picked 3 sports that I knew nothing about. So he took away the 2 best gifts fathers can give their sons. I could never overcoach my kid, and I could never second guess whoever his coach was, because I knew more than him. I just had to show up, put the kids in the car, take them to where we were playing. At the end, I would ask them, first I would say, I just want to tell you how much I enjoyed watching you play today or compete. That was it. And I said, what did you do well today, or what do you think you need to work on? That was it. And normally by asking that question, the kids talked, or he talked the rest of the time, told me the whole story. All I had to do was shut up and listen.
I think, I mean, I really love, I've heard you tell the story about the T-ball, and I really think it adds really tremendous perspective for parents. And on that same note, I hear you talk really what I consider to be the voice of reason with regard to this whole old school and new school and what school are we going to. To me, baseball has been, if for me it was Tony C. When Tony Clignaro would talk, I didn't try to miss a syllable. Talk a little bit about, not only through the book, the Hurdleisms, but really through your perspective and lens throughout your career as both a player and a coach and a manager. What is this old school and new school, and how can we blend the two to make some kind of cohesive pattern moving forward with the game?
Well, I learned the game a certain way, and I fell in the game for certain reasons, fell in love with the game for certain reasons. And most of those staples stayed in place all through my playing career, into my coaching career, and actually into my young managerial career. And it really wasn't until I got fired in '09 from Colorado, and I spent the second half of the year in the summer in the Major League Baseball Network doing the show. And I would go to the studio and they would tell me, hey, we want you to talk about this topic, that topic, and another topic. We're going to send you back in a room with some of the interns. You can have them pull up video. You can have them pull up numbers. You can have them pull up trends. So I was going back into a room with probably 3 to 4 college interns that had a grasp of numbers and trends and influencing metrics in the game that really I didn't know about. I had my set of numbers that I relied upon, but they opened up a new way just to look at the game. They shared a different lens to look at the game. They weren't recreating the game. That happened to me a little bit later, but that was my first opportunity to get dipped in and say, hey, there is a game behind the game. And I can see what a lot of people are looking at now from a different lens than maybe the people that are in uniform don't look at. When I got to Pittsburgh, that I was fortunate that I got put in contact with Neil Huntington, Kyle Stark, Dan Fox. Dan Fox was head of our analytical section. And Pittsburgh and Tampa at that time in 2010, 2011 were probably the forerunners of all the research and data development going on. So I got dipped into a whole new arena of information gathering. It took probably 2 years for me to learn, try to adapt, not be the old man. I don't believe that. That don't make any sense. And just try and open myself up, be vulnerable to some new ideas and some new situations, because basically we were in a situation we couldn't throw money at our problems. We couldn't throw money at our challenges. We had to find different ways to win on the margins. And the analytics and the research and development were providing us with different information that other teams didn't have at that time. So I was fortunate and to get to see both sides of it. Well, it came a tipping point after the 12th season, 2 years in a row. We came out of the gates hot. Matter of fact, for 9 years in Pittsburgh, we were either in first or second place at the All-Star break for 9 years. A lot of different reasons why we'd fall out the second half, but it wasn't from not deploying and employing different variables to have consideration about. The first time after the 2012 season, Neil and I had to have a heart-to-heart. We had to find some different answers, and we weren't going to be able to throw money at it. And it started with run prevention. We had to go find a catcher that could be a difference maker in framing pitching, blocking balls, energy, eyesight, lens. We ended up handpicking Russell Martin and gave him at the time the biggest contract the Pirates handed out. Turned into a great get. We added Francisco Laureano, then later on A.J. Burnett. We've got a lot of pitchers that had off seasons, but numbers historically said they're good in these areas. Can we recreate it? We put the right people in right places, but the eye-opening information, it just spoke truth. And the biggest one for me offensively was we sat down, and one of the areas that Neil said, I think there's more runs in our lineup, and it comes with making the lineup out. When I first showed up, as soon as somebody would argue with me about my lineups, I had to put my fists up. Now I know what I'm doing. But when you have two really good first halves and two really bad second halves, it's time for you to listen. And I said, so what are you talking? He goes, well, I know how you believe in staples in the lineup, how certain guys need to hit in certain spots. And there's a comfort in that for certain players. Certain players need that. And I go, yeah, yeah. He goes, so who do you want to hit third this coming year? I go, well, the same guy that's hit third in 11 and 12, Andrew McCutchen. He goes, and why is that? I go, he's the baddest dude on the team. Dusty Baker and I used to speak about that all the time. The MVP was the baddest dude in the league. Your number 3 hitter was the baddest dude on your team. And he goes, Clint, I felt the same way for a long time. He goes, but let me share something with you. In the last 2 seasons, Andrew McCutchen has gone to the plate with 2 outs and nobody on more than anybody on our team.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, what? He goes, Clint, here's the numbers, here's the breakdown. If he's hitting third, there's a lot of times in the first inning he's going to hit with nobody on and 2 outs. But as it played out, they go, here's some situations where more men were on base in the 2 spot, in the 4 spot, look at different options in the 1 spot. I go, 1 spot? He goes, yeah. Everybody thinks because the bottom of the order, 7 people don't get on base. He goes, that's your eyes telling you, but that's not necessarily the truth. Anyway, he got my attention through that. Then they opened up a whole different number of opportunities to look at the game offensively, how there are people that can match up better against left-handed pitching than right-handed pitching. There are guys that can work better in certain spots of the lineup against certain pitchers than others. So we kind of said, settle down. And he goes, Clint, the day I can't trust your guts in the dugout is the day I need to get you out or I need to do something different. He goes, I'm asking you to trust us in some areas to help you in the dugout. And it was in 13 before the season that we put together that it's not old school versus new school anymore. We're going to be in school and we're going to learn from one another and we're going to trust one another. And that's where it took off.
I mean, absolutely, just love old school, new school. No. We're going to be in school. I think if more people thought of the sport in that capacity, we're not inventing anything new. It's baseball. And sometimes we have to see different pathways in order to make sure that we're providing the right arena for athletes to be successful. Clint, tell me a little bit about how people can buy Hurdleisms and how do they follow you on social media, more importantly?
Well, Hurdleisms, the easiest way to get it for me right now, a lot of Barnes and Nobles carry it, a lot of Hudson News carry it in the airports, but Amazon.com, you can order it on Amazon.com and probably get it in a day or 2.
Well, I'm going to be giving away we're going to be giving away free copies. The only thing you have to do is be able to comment on the video below. We're going to send you a doll, a bobblehead, Clint in the back. We're going to send you the book. Also, just to let people know, there's an autograph in here inside the book. That's something that you should probably take a look for when you first get the book, in case you give it out to somebody like I did to read it, and then they gave that back to me. Thank goodness. But so, Clint, aside from Amazon, do you think there's another book coming in your future?
Well, this book's been out. I think we've started pre-order in November. I received my first copy hardback, which was kind of cool. It was almost reminiscent of my first baseball glove back in the day, to actually get a box of books, that I wrote every word in the book and I got to hold the book. And I love the size of the book. I'm not trying to overwhelm people with all my brilliance and genius. Again, this is about lessons learned. But the size of it and, just the fact that it fits in a bag, in a purse, in your back pocket, actually. You can get it online. I do think I've had some people reach out to me because normally when we started, John gave me a bunch of Hurdleisms. I called up probably a dozen people in my life and asked them if there's things that I had said over the course of years, our time together. So I probably had about 50 to 60 of them, and we whittled it down to 25 because we thought that was an appropriate number. So I've got more. We'll wait and see how the book works, but I do think there's a possibility that even if a publisher wouldn't pick it up, now with the foundation I have, that I could probably self-publish it and put it out. But to get, bits and pieces of it, you can go on Facebook, you can go on LinkedIn, you can go on X, you can go on Instagram. I'm on those 4 social media platforms. I also put out a daily email that's free at clinthurdle.com. It's faith-based, one of them. The other's encouragement, leadership, teaching. And these are from authors that I follow and people that I respect, people that have mentored me. So there's a number of different ways to just stay connected with what I'm putting out, what I'm sharing. And also, I think you'll notice that if people respond back to me, I have a pretty good return rate. I may not get back to you ASAP in the next 10 minutes because I do have a part-time job right now, bench coach with the Rockies. But I do get back to people and I thank them for their interest. I thank them for the support. And some people have come up with some new ideas and they've put out some pretty cool stuff that I've reposted. So I've met another host of good people. You're one of them. I've listened to your podcast with certain people. You have provided me with so much information, at least keep my finger on the pulse of youth sports, collegiate, high school, because it's important for me to not just try and be one dimensional, but to understand the journey these parents are on coming through high school, going into college, not just being the pro ball guy saying you need to do this or you need to do that. There's been plenty of parents along the way that I would share with them, hey, I really think you're best served on son. John probably needs to go to a JUCO more than a 4-year school right now. They're telling him he's going to play. A lot of coaches tell you you're going to play, but look at the other guys that he's got already in that college program that are playing in front of him. Do your research, do your homework, but I don't want to, and I'm also very capable of saying I don't know. People ask me a good question, I don't know, but I'll make a couple calls and try and find out somebody who does, who can help you.
Well, I will tell you that my day starts every morning. I get my Hurdleism, I guess we're going to start to call them on a regular basis via email. I encourage you as parents and more importantly as student athletes. This is the gift of someone who's lived the life and a life and giving back, avoiding potential pitfalls, staying positive, persevering, and being resilient. That is the message each and every day from Coach Clint Hurdle. I encourage you. I'm going to have all the links down below, both in the podcast as well as the YouTube down below. For those of you that comment, you're going to be entered in. I'm going to give away a couple free books, as well as the bobblehead behind me. And also remember that comes with the autograph. Clint, I want to say thank you. I know we're in the middle of the Major League season, but I truly appreciate you taking the time to join me today.
Coach, your time's just as important as mine. I hope we provided and shared some good information for your subscribers, the people that rely upon you for good, solid information. I thank you for what you do and the difference that you're making in the lives of these parents and these kids. You are providing a service that not many others are, and I'm proud of you and I'm thankful for you.
Well, I'm humbled that you even listened to my podcast. When you just said that to me, it caught me off guard, but I'm truly appreciative and very, very grateful. And thank you so much again for taking the time to join me today.
You bet. Thank you.